Hi all, welcome to this world of data science again. My name is Kishore Shankar Narayan, and I'll be just going through a few things today, and we will be discussing about JSON. But before that, let's do a small recap what we have done so far, and just a brief recap. And these are all the links, as we all know, that if anybody wants to just go through the previous sessions and other contact details for us, these are the things. So let's begin. So the first setup that we are going to look for is, right, we will be just understanding, like what we have seen so far is we have seen some fundamentals of Python, while we got some practical and some real world experience. So we have started writing some kind of Python program, and we know what it is, what is input and output, other data types. Now we have already installed Python packages. So this was all the agenda that we have covered in the previous sessions. Now we also understood why we are doing Python. First, it's used in various applications, right? And all the data science, machine learning, web development, and more, all the different types of applications where Python is being used. So we have understood that. Right, it's got a very strong support system that, I mean, you will be all agreeing, because it's got packages for everything. Whether you're talking about numbers, right? Whether you're talking about graphs, whether you're talking about plots, anything that you wanted, like there is package. So you have pandas, NumPy, scikit-learn, right? SciPy, everything is available. Seaborn, right? Any other statistical data visualization tool, things are available. These all we saw, and most importantly, it has been easy to learn. So far, so good. Correct? Yes? No?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Perfect. So it's primarily a very understandable it's written in an understandable spoken language. So, right, it just coincides with your local English language or languages that you speak. So it becomes easy to learn. Now, as a recap, there are 6 comparison operators for Python. One is greater than, the next is greater than or equal to. These are all the operators that you use, right? When you say equal to, you have to have this sign, and less than or equal to, it will have, right, this sign, and then less than is this sign. And most importantly, apart from all this, like when you say not equal to, you have to use the exclamation mark along with equal to. So I hope this 6 comparison operators are, right, comfortable, and you just have to remember these things whenever you are doing any kind of mathematical operators. To put it again, for logical operators, right, it's or, and, not. 3 words that you need to work around. The keywords and or let you combine multiple comparisons. So whenever you're comparing something, you use, right, and or, right, multiple comparisons. Similarly, when, right, you have to negate a comparison, right, you use, right, when you don't want to negate a comparison, you use not. So these are logical operators that we have done. All different data types that are being used, right? You have integer, which is the full number. We have float, which are all those numbers with the extension of the full numbers. So not the whole numbers, but like with points. right? The functions are there. You have strings which are there. We have complex data types and the Boolean, where you just have to mention whether it is true or false. So all these are, right, the Python data types that we have. Today, what we are going to do is we are going to understand, right, something called as JSON and API. Now, when you talk about JSON and API, now JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, right? And when you talk about API stands for Application Programming Interface. I will talk about it in details in some time, right? It's pretty easy, and you should be able to understand it comfortably because you have seen other data types. Now, JSON is a new standard data format for the web. Now, what happens is, like when you talk about JSON, it's one of the non-relational databases that is very often used. So we will take a dip into what JSON is and how. But there are other older format of data also, which is still used, that is XML. And it's called as extensible markup language. So if you guys want to just take a note of what they are, just you can just take a note. It's JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. API stands for Application Programming Interfaces. And XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. So there are still, as I told, these are different data formats, and XML is the older version, and which is in still use. Today, what we are going to talk about is JSON, and we will go a bit deeper. There are three things in JSON that we just will cover today. JSON itself. Then there is something called as schemas, that how JSON look like, all the JSON data look like. And we will also explore, right, the JSON schemas. So let's first, now when you work with the JSON files, always you need to remember that a substantial part of the job of a professional data scientist is to find and access the data. So now you're going to spend a bunch of time, right? You're going to, right, a whole lot of time will be spent in just collecting data and finding out. So from all different formats. So it's not going to be always like you have the ready-made data that comes up. But like pulling in data is going to take a lot of time. Now, and one of the formats, again, as I told you earlier, it's going to be JSON. Now, what happens is, like, there are relational databases that you will be looking for more than often, but there is a lot of information you might need to work with, right? Which is either not relational database or not exposed to you via a relational database. It's not always going to be like, okay, you're going to get the SQL database, or you're going to work on the direct databases which are coming from Oracle, right? These are all non-relational database, which is on JSON that you will be working on, you will be exposed to. Some companies, right, provides somewhere the data collection happens and it's converted into, right, JSON, and then like these databases are exposed to you. So just keep in mind, these are all like good to learn and keep it, so that whenever you come across something like this, you are not right into a shock like, oh, what is this, something new. So there are all different non-relational databases that you will be coming across on and off. But then, yeah, you should be knowing about them. That's the whole idea of today's session, that you understand what it is about. Right now, right, as an example, if you right, you might be working with a third-party website, and there are, I mean, a lot of example is like there is a lot of geographical data, perhaps point of interest, which is near state highways, or there are like point of interest area near wherever you're traveling or driving. So all this, right, if you say, if you want to search something, it should be, there would be available, things will be available within that data. But within that, their company, they might store the data within, right, a SQL format, but the right, you might have access to of using the APIs. Now, APIs is very simple. Talk one one computer talks to the other computer. Like for example, like if your website is talking to the Google Maps, it is talking to through an API. Right, it's saying that, okay, pull me this data. So Google will search for your website and it will give you, or it will give you the access which Google has. So that is done through the API. So from one system to the other system, one computer talks to each other, they talk to each other via the medium called API. Right, right, it's just like whatever information you want to pull it from the other computers. So your company, right, where you are working, they might be working on a regular relational database, but it's not necessary. There might be other companies or other systems which might have a non-relational database. So from where you are going to pull in the data. Right? I hope this is understood. Is it? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Sir, what exactly did JSON do?
It is just a database, right? It's how it is now you have SQL databases, correct?
Yes.
It pulls the data in certain format, or it maintains the data in certain format. There are certain tables, certain way it is kept. Same way, JSON has the database, but it has got certain schemas that we will discuss shortly. So we'll also see some Jupyter notebook to find out how it looks like and what. Now, let's go and let's look at some setups. So let's say now when you're talking about, let me just give you an idea. Working with JSON. So here you have okay, so this is one. Yeah. So you're able to see the screen? This Jupyter,
Yes, sir.
Jupyter notebook? Yeah. Okay. So when you're talking about a JSON, right, how it is, it's right. Let's go through one by one, like how it looks like, what it is, and right, a bit detail, right? What we are going to investigate more on what is JSON, right? So now what we are going to do is we are going to load the data and find out what. So as I told you earlier, the first part, JSON stands for JavaScript or Object Notation, right? And when it was introduced first, they were meant to streamline many data transportation issues. So it's like all the different sets and combining them into one. It was originally that way. Now, when data transfer happens, this is one of the most common thing that happens on the web. And there are like numerous parsing packages, right? I mean, including Python, which you are learning, right? And JSON is. Now, if you see, this is the way JSON file looks. All right. Now, let's say now this meta is one of the data, and then like you have, it's got ID. If you see, well, right, reference, like you have got name. These are all different, right? If you see regularly on a particular data frame, this probably will be your columns, and this will be having rows, right? So if you see all different sets, it goes in the sequence. Okay, so now let's load a database. Let's see how the database. So what you're going to do is this: when you're going to load a database, right? And this would be the, when you have this link, this is one of the links that you will have. So this gives all the details on data. Let me just share it with you. This will be anyway there on your LMS section, but this is the link which I've just shared it on the chat for the documentation where you can go in detail. Coming back to coming back to loading a JSON data frame. What you do is this, right? See, the same way, like you're going to import. When you import other documents, the same way you just import JSON, right? And obviously, like to view the data into the data frame of, make it better, you are using pandas. Okay, so first, like you are going to pull the data in JSON segment, and then like we will be converting into pandas for your other setups. So it's pretty simple, straight and simple. What we are going to do is this: we are going to pull in the data. So what we have done, we have imported, and we have given, right, a variable, and right, we are going given an extension where the data is. So if you see, this is the data file name and the extension is JSON. So now this particular file, right, like for example, like when you are going through the API, they will say that like, okay, they will export the data into JSON format. And that JSON, you pull it in your data frame, and in the folder that you're working on, right, it will be like this. So it will give you the extension of JSON, and then like you're pulling the same data here. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you're just pulling in the data, right? Whatever format it is, your same way you are pulling in, and you're giving the name to your data, and you're asking it to load, right?
So
And
whatever format we load in, it will once it uploads, it goes in the JSON extension, right?
correct. It will pull in the same format. It will, right? Now, when you're talking about, let's say, what is the type of the data, right? Now, if you see, right, this is all into a nested format, right? So this is how, yeah. Now, what you are going to see is, right, it's into the hierarchical structure. While we have data structure, right, analogs for your Python, dictionaries and list. So the way dictionaries and list looks in Python, this will be here. So by traditional methods, you will be able to investigate it properly, right? The whole idea of being a data scientist is like you're pulling in data and you're investigating and working on it, and you're going to give some kind of results, or you're going to give some kind of predictions. You're going to understand what the data is about, and based on data, you're going to work. So when you're talking about Python, the dictionary, it will be a dictionary, but like when you're talking about JSON, it's an object. So list and tuple will be an array, and in Python, str is termed as the string, and right, JSON, it's directly as a string. Now, JSON does not split numbers like integer, float, or right, all enums, which Python does. For JSON, it's just a number, right? True is right, the booleans, right? If you are talking about true, false, right? If you see, the only difference is like you will be having true as the lower t, right, alphabet, and F as the lower case. So these are the lower cases which are there on JSON. But when you're talking about Python, the case just changes to the uppercase, the first alphabet. And a null value will be none in Python, and here in JSON, it is like simpler. So first, what we are going to do is, now we have pulled in the data here, right? And we have loaded the data. And now what we are going to do is we are seeing it as what are the keys. So there are two keys in this particular data that we have pulled in, right? One is meta and the other is data. So if we have to find out what are the values in this, like it's the clay, right? It's just giving you the data type will be dictionary and list, right? These are the two classes that are available. And if you look how right now, what we are going to do is from, we are pulling from pandas, right, data frame, and we are going to convert it. We are just viewing it as per the panda. So this is how, right, these two columns look like. Okay, so why do you convert it into pandas? Because the view, right, the way you view it, it becomes easier and comfortable. Now see this, if the same data is viewed this way, right, you will have to go with detail, and in pandas it becomes more, right, clean and clear, and you are able to differentiate properly. Okay, so all the categories, right? And when talking about your data sector, the other class, right, this is how the entire, so you will be able to, once you pull in this data, you will be able to further investigate like what you need to do, whether you need to clean it, you don't need to clean it, but whatever you are doing, right? All this Python investigation that you have done earlier, right, based on your pandas, whether you want to look the first 5 rows, last 5 rows, right, columns, you want to add columns, delete columns, whatever you want to do, right? Once it is into pandas, you will be able to do it all the set. Understood?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, right. So that's it. So, and then like you're going ahead with, right, finding out your investigation. So this is, right, as simple as it gets for JSON. To summarize it for this section, the first part, what JSON is and all, right, there is, right, a lot going on here if you notice, right? But with the structured data types files, right? Now let's see how the right, the next section, the schema looks like. So if you see, there is one more, right, say. So let's start with the first one. Okay. So what I want you guys to do is whenever you are preparing any Jupyter notebooks for your project, or whether you're presenting anything, don't forget to use your markdowns properly. And because when you're using your markdowns properly, it becomes easier for you to navigate through and take it ahead. Like for example, like I have my table of contents, which gets automatically created, right? Like last time I showed you, right? For when you just need to go to widgets and just activate your table of contents, check on one section, and right, your table of contents are created. So if I want to navigate it, for example, you're showing your project, right? And we just want to navigate you to this section, like show us nested data. So you just click here and it will automatically take you to that section. If you're going to the first section, so it becomes easy navigation. One. Second, your indexing becomes pretty comfortable, right? You can go in a very structured format. Okay, so don't forget to use your markdowns properly whenever you're either you're creating your project or any, even if you're planning to create your own course, right? Don't forget to use your markdowns properly, because that's where your navigation becomes very easy with the Jupyter notebooks. When you're presenting your technical notebook, you're presenting it to somebody, right? For example, if you have a technical interview where you're told to navigate through your project, that you have to show them the project. So you will be able to, or based on your indexing that has happened, you will be able to know how clean and structured you are. The second way is like without your, if you say without your table of content, you will be just scrolling. First I did this, first I did next. You'll go through it. But then with table of contents, you will be able to easily navigate through the section, and the interviewer, for him or her, it becomes easier that like, okay, you have very comfortably presented it. Understood?
Yes.
Yeah. So coming back to our schemas for JSON, right? Now we just had a look at the JSON file, right? We will further explore how to navigate and traverse through these files. And one of the most common use case of JSON file will be when you're connecting to various website through their established APIs. Right, all you're going to do is you're connecting to from one website to the other. There will be these JSON files, and you are going to retrieve data from there. And with these, you are typically given a schema that how the data will be, like for how data is structured, and then use these knowledge to retrieve the pertinent information. And here in this lecture, will take a look at from the API New York Times. Now New York Times has a free API, so you just need to go register on New York Times, and on their setup, we will give you the link for that. And all you need to do is, once you register, there in your dashboard itself, there will be a section for API, you just need to punch in those keys whenever you are pulling the data from there. You'll punch in those keys of API keys, and it will pull. This Jupyter Notebook itself will pull the data from the API that has been provided. So you're connecting, your notebook is getting connected to New York Times website, their API, and from the API, it will get whatever data that you're trying to pull, you will navigate and pull it. So that is one way. So here we have already pulled in those data, and I'm just explaining you it in further details. So now here, what is the objective? Here the objective is like we are going to use the JSON module to load and parse the JSON documents and write the data to a predefined JSON schema. And after that, we are going to convert the JSON to pandas data frame, the way we did it previously, but then this time with the understanding of the schema. So first thing, like when we are talking about responses, right? So there are different responses that, later on, we will have Kala Madam explain to you all the responses, right? But like first, right, this is how the schema looks like, right? You will have, right? So when you talk about response 200 is the positive ones. So that's like, okay, it has retrieved the data properly. And whatever article search we are going to do currently, right? We are going to look at, right, some headlines, like things like that. So a more detailed view will be like your responses there, your documents. So this is how the entire schema will look like. Okay. So now what you can see is the master structure is a dictionary. So if you see this, right, are you able to see the curly brackets?
Yes, sir.
Now?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So if you see, right, you have, so the key named response. So you have a key, and then like you have the dictionary. Okay. So as we saw earlier also, so you have meta as one key, and then like you have data as the other key. Okay, so now let's continue examining this schema. So what we are going to do, again, we are going to import, right, JSON, right? We are going to open the JSON file, and we are going to load it same way. Finding the data, right, the type and the key, these are the regular features that you will be using. So I mean, you have already been using those to pull in data, and your specific data we'll just load it. So looking at the schema, you might be interested in retrieving a specific piece of data, right? From the entire data, whatever you want to pull it, you will accordingly. So here, right, we have to notice that this is under the key called docs. Okay. So all these keys that we are working on, one of the keys will be docs, and right, and everything is under response. So as we saw earlier on that. So from data, it goes to response, then to docs and the headlines. So there is this set which is there already. Understood? Now, while this is close to the code, you will use it to extract headlines, right? Now, what is happening is, right, there is a bit which is bit off, like you need to notice it and take a look closely at the schema outline, how the documents are placed, what has been happening, what is the subheading. So when you're looking at the news headlines, so you will look at the regular headlines, then you will have the subheadlines, and which becomes a list. So here, if you notice, right, your main headline will be there, and which is again a string, and then like these are different keywords which are as a string. So with this schema, right, it becomes challenging. So we are pulling in the data, we are right loading it, and then if you see, we are pulling only one section out of it. We just want to see what the headlines are. So, and we are going to check, right, if for further investigation, for example, you are going to check whether the headlines related to something are positive or are negative, or are right, what is the news channel following things about. You will be able to do that. First, we are going to pull in the headlines here, and right, the main headlines we are going to just check. So now this is how the entire thing's format. So then, like, what we are going to do is not, this is how the headlines look in the doc format. You're able to see it properly?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Now, every page, every section, there is different sets. So now what we are going to do is, because this will be very challenging for us to see it properly or check everything in details, what we are going to do is we are going to convert it into this alternative format, which is, for us, it is pandas. Okay. So we have started taking a look at the schema, how it looks like. Now we are going to transform the JSON into data frames and further investigating the schema. Now it's a good option for this, that you could be there where, right, the docs are there, the subheadings are there, while, right, you are able to, right, take a look at it. And it is going to be easier to load the entire section as data frame, and then use additional functions to break apart, right, internally from the nested data there. So, right, when you have nested data, it's like, and it becomes challenging for reading. But then that is like your data inside the data inside the data, or dictionary inside the dictionary inside the dictionary, things like that. But then you convert it into a data frame, and from the data frame you will go ahead and see what the data is all about. So you have converted, right, the data and you're into your data frame, and from here you can check, and you can always break out of your nested, right, datas. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So now, how would you, right, break out of your nested data, or, right, you just need to use your regular functions that you're using, because, like, now what you have done is, right, you have converted, right, yeah, I mean, your data frame into your data frame of pandas. Right, from JSON, it is now, right, you have taking it as pandas, you're viewing it as pandas. Now this, remember that like you have still not converted everything. You have not converted into any other format. You have just, you're looking at viewing it from the pandas side. Understood? Converting will be. Now if I run the same string, it will, what is going to happen is it will be back to your doc string, because you have not saved it into any other format so far. Okay, now your right now what we are going to do is like we are going to get the dictionary keys. Right now we are going to keep a track for your subsequent preview, and then right you're going to add a empty dictionary, empty list. Right, so for the same way, your right, your for loops, your key in keys, you're going to add your headline. From that, you're creating a new column name. You're defining right, say the new column and putting it into your data frame. Okay, so pull that, and then right, whatever is your right strategy. So you can, this is just one of the strategies that I have worked on, but like you can always worked on different strategies. The way, once the idea is right, getting your, pulling the data, you just knowing how the JSON looks like, and from there taking it ahead and exploring it further, you know. So now once you have the entire set ready, right, how it is, like all you need to do is this, you need to right dump it the way you want, right, and all you need to do is have an output, right, and from your data frame, let's say you have made any changes or anything, what you do is this, you just go back and put it back to your output as JSON. So either way, right, you pull it into a data frame and then put it back to your JSON, or you just view everything in JSON and convert it and work around the way you feel more comfortable, work around it. Understood so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Great. So so this time what you are going to do is this, right, you are going to write the permission. So once, right, so this is the code that you will be just working on. I mean, you can right convert it back to your, right, once the data frame is converted into pandas, then like you have worked on it, and then like you want to convert your data frame into any other format, you can still do it, right? So here the idea is just to see the how the entire schema looks like. Okay, so if you look at, right, have another look at it, so first we had how JSON looks like, we, right, then we had a look at the what is that, the schemas. We can go further and explore them also, the other set also. Okay, so that what right, it's very simple, like when you talk about nested data frames, or where data is data at the end of the day. It's just saved in different format. You have to get it to the format that you are more comfortable in, all right, and then work around that, and finally give the output or convert it back to the next set. Understood so far?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So at the next level, like we are right, it will be transforming, right, your JSON schemas, right, further exploring what needs to be done, and then like you will be right getting into your graphs and all. So we will just check what this now. In this part, what we are going to do is this. Again, we are going to use the JSON module to load and parse JSON documents. Now, what happens is when you load, we will also check and load and explore unknown JSON schema. So it's not going to be always the same schema that is the way this works, because every different company will have a different way of presenting it, right? So, and you will again convert it into a pandas data frame. So this is the notebook that I will be adding and leaving it up on the, what do you say, on our LMS. All you need to do is this, right? You need to explore it and all this, right? So the way everything is there, you can add, you can just work on your code. These codes can be similar to the schemas that we have already looked into. Understood?
Yes,
When
yes.
you have to practice about JSON, you use this simple notebook for just practicing.
Okay.
Okay. So first level is
Yes.
when you see. So these are the 3 notebooks that will be there. Okay, when you're practicing. So whenever you're coming across JSON document, when you're pulling in data from different place and converting it into, right? This for your references, I'll be keeping this data, this notebooks there. So all you need to do is just go through these notebooks and work around. Clear about it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The reason I have also kept it as the indexing format, with all this markdowns, is it for you to be right, have it, explore it easy. Understood? So you pull in the
Yeah.
data, you do things, the level, convert the data to pandas, right? And you convert it into clear. Now this
Okay, sir.
about this, yeah, it's the disease data, okay, which is already which will be already loaded, right? And if you see, let me just, this is 1, 2, your campaign. Where is the third? I will be adding that data, and both the folders will be there. You have to work on that. Understood?
Okay.
Right. It's actually, let me just show you this on exploring. Let me see if this is the one. No. Yeah. So this is the JSON file which I will be adding, right? And it will have all the other setups. You just need to convert it and get it. Clear about this?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Any questions so far?
No, no, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so explore. So this was all about the JSON part for today. We will further explore the API into the next section. Thank you.